guys, and welcome back to my corner of the internet. I'm Shannon, and today I have a Vlogmas book talk video to share with you guys. And today we are talking about Last Christmas in Paris. This book is written by Hazel Gaynor and Heather Webb. It's cool that this book was co-written by two people. That sounds really difficult to me, but they did it fabulously. So let's just jump right into this book. The book starts off with a man named Tom. It's 1968, and Tom is very old and not in good health, and he is traveling to Paris for what he truly believes will be his final Christmas. And with him, he is taking a stack of letters that he had written and received during World War I. So after we get this very brief setup, we start to read the letters along with him. And then aside from these page or two intervals that happen probably 4 or 5 times throughout the book that take place in 1968, the rest of the book is told through letters. That's it. And I will say I was a little put off by this at first, the idea of it. I've read books that were done in this format before, and they just really did not do anything for me. But I knew I wanted to get another Christmas book in, and I am a sucker for historical fiction. I love stories that take place during World War I, so I thought, let's do it. So let's set up the characters here. We have 3 main characters. The first is the elderly man we meet at the beginning. Of course, in the letters, he's a very young man who is just heading off to war. He's Tom. Then there's his best friend, Will. And then Will's little sister, Evelyn. So the 2 young men are heading off to war, and Evelyn is at home, and she is sending them off, and the first letter is written just hours after they leave. At this point in time, everyone, I think it's September, and everyone is sure that the war is going to be over by Christmas, that everyone's going to be home, and that it'll be over. It's going to be quick, it's going to be fast, they'll be in and out, and there's really nothing to worry about. So the letters start off like that, you know. Evelyn expresses a bit of jealousy that the boys get to go off on an adventure while she's stuck at home. And she's, you know, there's not a whole lot of worry at first, because nobody knows what they're dealing with. So they exchange letters. Evelyn sends them to Tom, her brother's friend. Tom sends them back. Every so often, will send one once he's sort of harassed into it, because he's not much of a letter writer. But it's Evelyn and Tom that really connect through these letters. And she's known him her whole life, but he's been her brother's best friend, so she never really thought of him as anything other than that. But through these letters, they really start to form a deeper friendship. And kind of through this friendship, feelings start to develop. But of course, no one's really saying anything. They're kind of waiting until, you know, the war is over and everything goes back to normal. And the entire story is so touching. It's a touching story, and I imagine there are tons of real life situations that played out like this. And it's touching. I cried a few times, sometimes happy tears, sometimes sad ones. It hit me on a lot of different emotional levels. There's some humor in it. It really delivered kind of the perfect Christmas story. And if you love historical fiction, I mean, you cannot go wrong. And that's really all I'm going to say about it for anyone who doesn't want any spoilers, because I certainly don't want to ruin such a lovely story for anyone who wants to read it themselves. So if you want to read this yourself, please exit now. Thank you so much for watching. For the rest of you, let's get into the rest of the story. So they're exchanging the letters. After a while, Evelyn really feels like she needs to do more. I imagine that was a common feeling for many women who had to stay home when their husbands and brothers and lovers and cousins and everybody went off to war. So she eventually gets a job working as the postmistress. Well, not the postmistress, but the one delivering, actually out on her bike delivering the letters that are coming in from the front. So she likes that. It makes her feel as though she's being useful. All the while still exchanging her letters with Will and Tom. The three of them are constantly making plans for the future. And one of the main themes of these plans is Christmas in Paris. So at first they think that first Christmas, like the war will be over, we'll meet up in Paris. And then, the years pass, and then it's like, well, this year the war will be over and we'll meet up in Paris. And then, the years keep slipping by and they're still at war. And eventually word comes that her brother Will has been killed. And that, of course, takes an incredibly hard toll both on her and her family, but also on Tom. Now he's out there, on the front lines by himself, having lost the closest person to him, because Tom doesn't really have much family, and Will was his family. So now he's out on the front lines. There's no time for him to, mourn and take care of himself. So he just has to keep going, just shut it down and keep going. As time passes, we learn that Tom's father runs a newspaper in the English town where they live. And he's very ill, his father. He's old and he's, I think he's got cancer. And he's going to be dying soon. And Tom has always really kind of been belligerent about this newspaper. Like, his father wants him to take it over, but Tom's like, that's your life, it's not my life. And so now, of course, he's away. And so one of his cousins, a man named John, who Tom really dislikes, takes over the paper. And every so often he'll get a letter from one of the employees who's like, he's ruining this paper. And that, of course, is difficult for Tom, being so far away and unable to do anything to help. So eventually Evelyn meets with John. She starts to get to know him a bit, and he offers her a column at the paper where she can sort of write a woman's perspective, kind of a woman at home, missing loved ones who are on the front, and what that means to her and how it affects her. And it becomes a fairly popular column. She writes it under a pen name so that her strong opinions don't get too much hate directed at her, because it's a small town. She doesn't, you don't want that. And as she's working at the paper, she kind of develops a close relationship with John, the cousin that Tom really dislikes, and that creates quite a bit of tension between the three of them. And as time goes by, we find out that John's just not who he initially seems like he is. He's not a good man, and in time, Evelyn comes to see that, and she backs away from him after he proposes to her. And even though she says no to him, John, I guess trying to get a rise out of his cousin, tells Tom that they're going to be getting married. And then Tom writes to Evelyn and tells her how, upset he is about that. And then they don't write for a bit. She continues to write to him, but he doesn't respond. Eventually, even that isn't enough, and Evelyn is given the opportunity to go over to France to be on the front line, sort of just working, well, not on the front line, but like in where the war is taking place, sort of doing secretarial work, answering phones in some of the headquarters and things like that. And she takes it, much to everyone's horror. Her family, she knows that she can't straight up tell them, so she writes it in a note and leaves through the night, because she knows they would never allow her to go. And of course, they've already lost one child to the war. You can't really blame them being so terrified. And she goes, and she's still writing to Tom, and he's now just mad that she's over there too, because he's, and she takes that as him saying, this is no place for a woman. Women aren't strong enough to do this. But of course, that's not what he's implying. He's implying that he cares so much about her that he does not want her over here, where she could get killed just like Will. So that's all taking place. And then there's of course a lot more going on while this is going on as well. So if it sounds like a story and you've listened all the way to the end, there's still lots you could get out of reading it. So what happens next is, while Evelyn is working over there, she gets very sick. She gets a very bad flu and infection, and it looks like she's going to die. And so finally somebody gets in touch with Tom and tells him, like, you need to come. She's asking for you. You have to just suck this up, whatever you're feeling, and come and see her. And he does, but they won't let him in because she's sort of quarantined so as to not spread it any further. And he's just heartbroken. He writes her a letter apologizing for what a, absolute pain in the ass he's been. And luckily in time she does recover. And then that kind of brings us to the end of the letters. And then once again we're transported to 1968, where Tom is going for a final Christmas in Paris, and he's sort of reminiscing about all the beautiful Christmases him and Evelyn spent in Paris after the war. But we can tell through the way he's speaking that she's since passed away from cancer. Maybe she's the one with cancer, and him it's just kind of old age. I'm having trouble remembering what their ailments are, but yeah, so she's already passed away, and he's there with family, and he's getting ready to make the journey too. And at the end, we're kind of left with the thought that once he's given these final letters a read, and he goes to bed, he won't be waking up again. And he kind of knew that in his soul. And it's just such a lovely story. It's lovely. It's heartbreaking. It's got a gorgeous cover. I love that cover. It's so pretty. So yeah, if you're looking for a sad but hopeful and uplifting and touching and just all around great Christmas read, I definitely recommend Last Christmas in Paris. I'm pretty sure you can grab this anywhere. I picked this up at Walmart, so I think it's pretty easy to find. Anyway, you guys, I hope you enjoyed this book talk video. The next one is going to be just a regular book. We're done with the Christmas books for this year. And yeah, thank you so much, guys, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.